Embark Live going live. Today, we're going to chat a little bit about the new fashion calendar. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with all the news these days in terms of how we should be thinking about production, manufacturing, and ultimately how we're going to be returning to a full and robust economy. Now, what I think has been really interesting or important here is that in the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk in the industry about how fashion and retail is going to be adapting to these different kinds of models. And so when we're asking ourselves, what are those models? We're specifically talking about the markdown cycles, we're talking about new product releases, and then we're also talking about how consumers are responding to things like markdowns, and then also the influencer generation. So what do influencers kind of play the role here in terms of businesses? So you may have heard, but Gucci recently announced that they'll be pulling back from the traditional retail calendar and spinning off into their own. We saw on Business of Fashion the other week that there's a huge petition, if you will, put together by people all across the industry who are saying, hey, we actually don't want to be held to these crazy markdowns. We want to be selling products that are in season when we're selling them, meaning it makes no sense to be selling sweaters in August, even though that's when sweaters get delivered to stores. And we should actually be selling, especially now with, unfortunately, climate change, et cetera, we should actually be selling products that are closer to the timeline where we actually need to be able to purchase them. So imagine buying your swimsuits at full price in June and July when it's actually hot, rather than worrying about liquidating those full price. Looking at challenges when it comes to something like this. Well, when we're looking at things like, how we're going to be optimizing that, we really need to take a look at what the delivery cadences are and how we're thinking about our manufacturing process. Certainly, if you're a brand that owns your entire manufacturing and you own your factory, it's going to be a lot easier for you to kind of own that supply chain and be able to sell goods and manufacture goods closer to when retailers and consumers need them. For smaller businesses, it tends to be a little bit harder, right? Why is that? Because you still do need quite a bit of time to get your order in line at the factory as your factory is producing products for other brands. So if you are a small business, obviously, you may not be first in line at your factory to get your goods made. You might actually be 10th in line. So how are you going to compete with having those products arrive in store at a particular date if you actually have to compete with a flooded manufacturing system of, let's say bigger orders or higher priorities? One way in which you might be able to kind of circumvent that or find some better solutions will be working domestically and kind of working and building with those existing relationships that you have in the industry. If you do have great relationships in the industry on the manufacturing side, you'll be able to broker those deals and make sure that your orders get produced first. You may also be able to collaborate with a factory and have them, excuse me, you might be able to collaborate with a factory and have them actually be maybe your sole factory, what you're dedicated to. You might be looking at shifting your model. So as opposed to delivering product only, twice a year, it might be more often. But the way that we're looking at how you'll be working, the way we'll be working with how you're looking at your manufacturing and your supply chain will be different if we find that the retail buyers are looking to purchase product closer to those delivery dates. So a lot of this, I think, really got put on its head during this crisis, during the COVID crisis. Why? Because all of a sudden now, guys, we're in a situation where right now you would actually be able to, hi, Carmen, you would actually be able to, right now we're going into the time period of men's market, June, July, August, we're working into other markets. And if we're not actually staying cognizant of, hey, this is the time period where I was going to be collecting orders to then have them go into production to arrive, let's say, during resort or holiday, you're asking yourself, what do I do during this time period, right? The retailers are wondering how they might be able to project a Q4 that at this point seems very hard to project. So the retailers are getting a lot of pressure to place orders. However, they don't know what's going to happen. And no matter how optimistic we might be, based on the markdowns that you guys are seeing now coming across these different retail platforms, unfortunately, they are still reacting pretty aggressively when it comes to when it comes to sell-through. And so when we're starting to think about, how are we going to work within this? We have to ask ourselves, what's going to be the best decision for your business, for my own business, right? How am I going to work with what these retail buyers need, further expand into, let's say, a direct-to-consumer strategy and approach, and then also at the same time be able to push it out in a very 360 way. So oftentimes, guys, when I'm working with clients and brands, we're oftentimes thinking about how do we satisfy both wholesale needs and direct-to-consumer needs. Really, the best, most successful business models are actually able to do both. And if you're only focusing on just one channel, you actually end up missing out an entire different kind of profit margin, right? An entire different kind of revenue stream. And with this COVID crisis, I would say that the majority of brands out there have realized just how weak their business models were when it came to having customer engagement, community, building direct-to-consumer, and also building good relationships with wholesale. So even if you had wholesale accounts, it's not simply enough to just have those accounts. You need to have regular customer service who's going to be keeping up with those accounts in order to ensure that your buyers have you top of mind. You certainly don't want to be one of those brands who ends up, pushing out goods, selling into a store, and then not contacting them again until you want a reorder, right? It's like, doesn't really work like that. Buyers are people, right? They want to make sure that you are in alignment, right, with what their goals and needs are. You want to be getting sell-through reports. You want to be offering them exclusives. So well, and trust me, like I did PR for a year. That was really hard. It was like I had to basically be friends with a bunch of people. And I was like, how do I keep up with this? There are too many people out there. Similarly with sales, I'm not exactly a great wholesale salesperson. Too many people to keep up with. And it's too much energy out there, right? It's too much going on. But some people are excellent at it. So if you're thinking about how you are leveraging wholesale, it's really going to be about the ways in which you are setting up those relationships. And if you are a brand that had great wholesale relationships, then chances are during this crisis, you might have seen some POs get cut. You might have actually more so seen more creative ways of working together. Maybe they kept your product. Maybe you guys renegotiated margins. Maybe you guys did something creative around marketing or advertising. But really, the retail industry thrives on community and it thrives on collaboration. The most exciting thing about it is that we all need each other, right? There's just no way that you could ever be in retail without needing a collaboration of lots of different partners, everywhere from oh, Bob, you're saying the connection's cutting out. Thank you for letting me know. Let me see if I can fix that. And if I let me know, all right? I went ahead and tried to change the so the relationships, it's ultimately about that connection and it's about that community. And without having that kind of connectivity, what you'll oftentimes find is that your brand only goes so far. It actually ends up petering out around the time frame that you're no longer investing in customer service. So you might think that your job right now is to ultimately be a brand that produces good product. It's part of your job. The other part of that is to make sure that you're relationship building and that you have people that are there to give support to customers on the DTC side as well as on the wholesale side. So to kind of bring this full circle back when we're looking at this new fashion calendar, as you guys are thinking about how does this apply to me, what do I need to look at, how does this change merchandising, I would think of it in terms of some of the ways that you may already be looking at it. Number one, when do my customers actually need and when will they actually wear this garment and product? If you are already following those guidelines, then chances are you're already migrating over. Unnecessary markdowns and sales, are you able to take away unnecessary markdowns and sales because you're trying to just compete within the market? Again, as a small brand, you're probably being very lean with your markdowns and your sales because you didn't actually want to build a business of liquidation from the beginning. That also might mean you're very lean with your inventory. So small brands are already kind of up on this way of looking at lean inventory, ways of looking at lean management, not over assorting, keeping things very clean. Now, the area that you're going to have to spend some more attention on to is ultimately going to be how you're looking at getting on board with how retailers might be looking at this new fashion calendar. And that's going to be on a by store basis. You know, when you have companies like Gucci that are pulling back and saying, hey, we're going to try something new, that is an amazing first step because it means that other companies will jump on board. But if you guys are not already exploring what this means for your supply chain, you might find yourself a bit frustrated with the end results and what this might look like. Furthermore, you know, when it comes to these bigger businesses that are able to make these big shifts, it's exciting for them because they can lead the charge. You know, Gucci's done an amazing job with, being one of the first companies to ban fur. They're extremely progressive, especially since the days that I used to work there. Things have changed significantly. But now when you start to see what does that mean for small business, there are very different kinds of implications. So my advice to you guys is take a look at your supply chain, figure out your direct to consumer strategy, and then figure out your wholesale strategy and see what are the ways in which they can run parallel to each other. Are these two different business models that you're actually mapping out? Is it one business model that you're going to be integrating and kind of trying to work with? If you are a small brand, you're sharing your manufacturing facilities, you're not able to get front in line and you're not able to push through those orders, you may end up finding yourself with an inventory liability as you look to supply retailers with more product at that moment, right? Or within a month or 6 weeks of when they need it. So this gives small independent retailers more of a strong direction as they move forward to remap the fashion calendar. This new way of looking at business is obviously going to be a little bit more challenging when it comes to some of these big box retailers. They also buy goods way in advance, right? Because they're kind of looking not only at how sales are performing from that season prior, right? But they're making changes and basically adding on to their open to buy, almost leading up to when those products are delivering. So this will put also some pressure on retailers to be able to get a better read on the market, make those decisions quite quickly. It'll leave their open to buy windows probably more lean, which means a lot more longer hours when it comes to that. All right, guys, please feel free to leave some questions here in the chat. You guys have been a little quiet, which is okay. I'll speak a little bit more on kind of what I think the implications are for small business and some of the market trends that I'm seeing. But, what I'm very excited to say is, we'll be continuing to be here on Embark Live over the next foreseeable future. So we'll be able to have some great dialogue on the shape of the industry, how things are progressing, and ultimately kind of be on this journey together as we see how retail unfolds over the next weeks and months. Right now, as we're looking at how even the PPP loan is starting to unfold for a lot of companies, there have been some I was on a webinar the other day. We were talking about reopenings of small businesses. And guys, when it comes to how businesses are reopening, it's very, very exciting. I was speaking to some store owners in Coral Gables, and what's fascinating about that is they've not only introduced some amazing customer service strategies to be able to service customers during this time period, but they're actually looking at integrating those customer service strategies going forward. So guys, when you're thinking about customer service, you're going to have to think not just about what have I been doing to maintain business these last 2 months, but how much of what I've been doing will have to be incorporated into a go forward marketing strategy. You can't just hold people's hands, right? And then expect to drop their hands and have them stick around as customers. You're going to have to continue to integrate those customer service practices as your business continues to reopen and as you go back into the market. All right, Carmen, you're a newbie looking to get your product on the shelves and wholesale. Great. I would say, Carmen, this is a challenging time for business. This is a challenging time to look at getting wholesale distribution. This would be the time to look at local partnerships, and also the time to be thinking about how your business is going to be innovative. Are you selling products that are interesting? Is it novel? Is it the same as everyone else? What makes your brand something unique and special? So that brand DNA and that provenance of who you are becomes something that you need to hone in on in a very specific way. So when you're looking at kind of distribution strategy or wholesale distribution strategy, I would say the biggest advantage that you have right now is that this new fashion calendar might actually be having your retailers calling you a bit later in the year. That means that it gives you a lot more time. If you were planning on selling resort holiday goods in this June, July market, you now have a few more months to figure out your brand value proposition and how you actually want to be looking at wholesale distribution. So this is the time to make friends. This is the time to get in touch with buyers. This is the time to be friendly. This isn't the time to hard sell. This isn't the time to cold pitch. It's the time to be a friendly. And so when you're in that process, the way that you talk to people really establishes your level of comfort and also your level of professionalism. Be clean in your emails, be very specific, clean meaning very edited, be specific, and be able to actually engage those wholesale buyers in an interesting conversation about why you're doing what you're doing. I have a number of clients who have launched their businesses in the last 6 weeks. And what's so exciting about seeing them launch their businesses is that this is actually, this is an amazing time for you to be able to do that. And even though everyone's saying, does it make sense? Is this something that is, does it make sense to do this? Why should we do this? Ultimately, guys, to be able to push through and to carry forward actually offers quite a bit of uplift and positivity. And consumers are looking for that right now, which is really important. All right, Carmen, you can find me. embark.live is going to have a profile for scaling retail, and also on Maker's Row, you can find scaling retail. And certainly, I'm here. I exist, so you can find me anytime looking up for scaling retail. So that's how you can find me. All right, guys, that is all for me on this new fashion calendar. Please think about your supply chain. Please think about how you can be innovative around these business models and business practices. It's not easy. There's a lot of information. If you are a creative, you're a small business owner, it's very difficult to know how to navigate these times. Luckily, you've got amazing services out there. Maker's Row when it comes to your manufacturing needs, Embark Live with their host of experts across the industry, and certainly here at Scaling Retail, where you have retail experts who can help you price, position, and scale your business. All right, guys, I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. I will see you next week, same time, same place. Please bring your questions. Please bring your ideas. Would love to engage in some lively conversation.